Up there, gentleman up there, yeah.
My name is Shachar Baron, and my question is for Mr. Dani Dayan. It was mentioned, obviously, we just talked about it, that Israel is the 11th happiest country in the world. Other organizations and institutions put it at mid-30s, all different statistics, but it doesn't matter. I propose that what makes a country good isn't whether a country is happy or not, it's whether it's about the ethics and the morality of a country.
I agree.
When soldiers and when we are conditioned and persuaded on a daily basis to subjugate and humiliate people and consider other human beings as less than human, I think that seeps in. And I think the soldiers, when they go home, when they go inside Israel after, whether they go home for the weekend, after 2 weeks, they bring that back with them. And we can see it when...
Are you saying this from personal experience?
Sure, definitely. Just the other week, when some border police soldiers were rough with some Christian tourists, another soldier of mine, a colleague, said she couldn't believe what they were doing. I mean, come on, they're people, not they're people, not Palestinians. And that, I think, resonates throughout much of the soldiers in the occupied territories. I personally serve in the Jordan Valley, and we can see it every day, how soldiers talk about what they're doing, how they act, how they look at these people not as other human beings, not as someone who's equal, but as someone who is less than them. And to think that, oh no, we can just leave that racism there, we can leave that xenophobia, no, they'll only be racist, they'll only humiliate Palestinians, of course not. And what this motion is how it will affect Israel. They'll bring it back to Israel. A few weeks ago, there was a border police soldier who was caught on camera beating up an Ethiopian Israeli in uniform. To say that we can just leave this all behind is nonsense, I think. I think that once you're conditioned to think something, you bring it back with you, and that deeply affects Israeli society and causes it, as our president said, to be more racist.
Dani Dayan.
Well, I think that, my friend, you're not the only person that was in the army. I was also in the army. I have a daughter in the army.
No, but don't dismiss
and
what he says just like that.
I think that's demagoguery.
Address what he says. Address what he says.
I think the guy is lying. I can't say it any other.
You think he's lying?
Yes,
you just go out to him and tell him he's a liar. On the basis of what? Because you don't like it? You don't like it? So he's a liar.
Yes, because he said that he is given orders to treat Palestinians as inhuman. And then he brought examples of some of his friends, of his colleagues, that are morons, that refer to Palestinians in a derogatory way. I challenge him to bring one case in which an official gave him an order to treat Palestinians inhumanly.
You've never read Breaking the Silence? You've never seen the reports from Breaking the Silence?
Breaking the Silence.
He's not the only one who's saying this, Dani Dayan.
Breaking the Silence is also one of those groups that are part of an orchestrated effort to delegitimize Israel.
They're all liars.
Now again, I challenge the guy, he's here, I challenge the guy to give us one example with names, not just, he can do it off record if he wants, of an officer that in the Israeli army that gave him an order to dehumanize Palestinians.
You've seen chapter and verse. It's in the Breaking the Silence reports.
Look, I don't consider.
And people have the guts to go in front of the camera. Excuse me. Can I just say one thing? People have the guts.
But they will tell you.
Excuse me, Dani Dayan. There's no need to shout me down. Okay, I'm asking you a question. People have had the guts to go in front of the camera and report on what is said to them. But you think they're liars too, simply because you don't like what they say.
No, because the Israeli military has this very strict disciplinary laws that people that do those kind of things are judged.
Danny,
and if this guy knows of a case in which an officer gave him or one of his colleagues an order to treat inhumanly a Palestinian, I challenge him to report that, and I assure you that that person will court-martial.
We'll come back to him in a second.
Danny, a situation where for almost 50 years soldiers controlling a civilian population is, you have to be superhuman in order not to treat them the way they are being treated. We are not superheroes. We are human beings. And when you control through a gun, then you see cases like that. It's inevitable.
How can I treat seriously how can I treat seriously a person that brings an example of the police officer that beat the Israeli Ethiopian as an example of the moral
it's a great example.
Give me
a
moral
great
deterioration of the so-called occupation, when we see it happening in Baltimore with no occupation, we see it happening in New York City without occupation.
But the fact that other countries have...
Don't evade the question.
It didn't happen in the West Bank.
Don't evade the question.
What link there is
between... Don't evade the question.
I don't. I say it's absurd to say that that police officer that beat an Ethiopian Israeli has something to do with the issue we are talking about.
Let's go back to... Did you want to answer his... You've had enough, have you?
Sure.
You want to answer what he said?
Sure.
It's challenging what you said.
Two main things. First of all, I'm not necessarily talking about a specific illegal order. We'll get to that too. But just the general attitude of the soldiers and commanders towards the Palestinian civilians, seeing how they...
What do you mean a general attitude?
Let him explain.
Give us examples. Give us an example of an officer that gave you an order. I don't know what's an attitude.
Instead of shouting him down, why won't you listen to him?
I'm trying to understand him.
Sure. For instance, when Palestinians are passing through a checkpoint, just to see how the soldiers and how the commanders speak to them, whether they speak as they would speak to any fellow Israeli or fellow soldier, or it's only in grunts, it's only in short sentences, it's only in yelling. Specifically, I can give an example of we were given an order, we were told that we're not allowed to take photographs with Palestinian children on some specific occasion. And if they try to just kick them away. But one thing I would very much like to make clear here, something that you said, oh, just give the name and number and they'll be court-martialed and it'll be dealt with and that's it. As if it's an isolated incident. Of course not. This happens everywhere. I hear this from all sorts of other units. I'm specifically in a combat unit, search and rescue. But you'll hear this everywhere. It's not an isolated incident. This is something that happens throughout the occupied territories. So whether it's the orders that are given or whether it's just a general attitude, I would definitely say that this seeps in and that this deeply affects Israeli society.
Okay, there was a gentleman next to you.